Good evening, students, and thanks for joining. And I know it's a pandemic situation, and still appreciate Krishna's time as well as the students' time to join this session. So, Mr. Krishna Prasad, he is the head of the whole Indian admissions, as well as, if I'm not wrong, South Asia also. So he takes care of the Levi's University end-to-end admission processing and everything, and he has a very good experience. And if I'm not wrong, he also has a experience of staying in US and studying there. So we thought, most of the students are having a lot of questions, and also they are in a dilemma. So we take this opportunity to welcome Krishna Prasad, and at the same time, students, if you have questions, you can feel free to type in the question and answer sessions. So at the end of the session, Mr. Krishna will be able to answer all your questions. So Krishna, it's up to you, all to you, and welcome, and thanks for joining.
Hey, thank you, Santosh. Once again, thank you to you and your entire team for putting this together within such short notice, because it's always nice to talk to students through a group session like this. And once again, thank you to everybody who's here today. My name is Krishna Prashant, and I'm the India Country Manager for Lewis University that's based out of Chicago. I'm originally based in Chennai, and just to give you a little bit of background, I actually did my master's in the US, worked there for a couple of years, just like a lot of you aspire to do, and then eventually moved back to India. Just before I could join Lewis, I used to work for a team called Education USA, which is inside the US consulate in Chennai. I'm sure a lot of you are eagerly waiting for the consulates to reopen so you can eventually book your visa appointments and eventually travel to the US. So today, I'll talk briefly about Lewis University. If there is anybody who's still looking at applying for the university, then the good news is we have another intake that starts in October, which we call it late fall intake. So there's still time if you want to apply for the October intake. I know there's a lot of uncertainty currently with the August intake, but please be patient. We hope to hear some positive news from the consulates and the embassy eventually, then reopening appointments and starting to interview students. With respect to Lewis, a couple of things that I'm going to quickly talk about is, number one, Lewis is a university that is located in Chicago area. So I would say about 30-35 miles from the heart of Chicago. So if you are looking at getting your education, especially your master's degree, at an affordable price in a good location and study a program that might be of interest to you, then Lewis is actually a good university for that. The reason I say that is, number one, of the location advantage. Chicago is the third largest city in the US. So if you probably are looking at a return on investment, then being at Lewis University is a great choice, because the cost of education typically at Lewis, we tentatively expect about $15,000 per year. So that way, in 2 years, if you're going to be spending $30,000 to get your master's degree, the average return on investment is going to be a bare minimum of 1.5 times to 2 times to start with after you graduate. So when I mean 1.5 times, what do I mean? So when you graduate, the minimum starting salary that you can expect is about a bare minimum of $45,000 to $60,000 if you have absolutely no prior experience. If you have more years of experience, then great. You can negotiate depending on your subject matter expertise and your previous background. And a lot of other advantages with Lewis is, number one, we offer tons of programs that might be of interest to you guys with respect to. Let me quickly share my screen if there is an option to do that. Give me 1 second.
So there will be a symbol on your screen in between.
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we are able to see.
Wonderful. I'm going to quickly breeze through the presentation. I'm not going to talk too much about Chicago. Everybody knows about Chicago. Just quickly, the highlights about the university. Founded in 1932, we're private, but we're non-profit. What that means is you're still eligible for CPT, OPT, and all the other privileges that come with F1. We're 6,500 plus students in a campus of 14 acres. I'll talk about the programs in a little bit. This slide is something that I want to spend more time with. So in terms of rankings, a lot of people have apprehensions about private universities. If you look at Lowes University, we are in the top 25 in the Midwest region, which you can certainly look up on the US News and World Report, and top 3 in Illinois by schools.com. We have multiple intakes. As you can see, we have January, March, May or June, and again, August and October. So you can pick and choose depending on which intake you want to go. If you are somebody with 3-year bachelor's degree, we absolutely accept 3-year bachelor's degree, even if it's from a non-NAC institution. And one of the biggest advantages, we allow students to switch from any field to any field. So let's say if you studied history and if you want to master in aviation, then certainly we do allow you to do that. If you studied civil engineering or mechanical engineering, then you want to study computer science, that's absolutely possible. We have a lot of students who applied to us from different backgrounds, wanting to study different programs. So that's absolutely acceptable. Good news is usually I get students asking me questions like, hey, do you accept history of backlogs? Do you accept gap years? As you can clearly see from the screen, we accept students with history of backlogs or gap years. With the current situation, I know some universities do not accept Duolingo, but we have made exception to also accept Duolingo. In terms of other advantages, we also offer day one CPT. What that means is it gives you an opportunity to do CPT from day one once you arrive at Lewis. So just to give you a little bit of example, we have students who joined us in January of this year, and they were able to quickly land in an internship in February or March, even though there was pandemic. Fortunately enough, studying at Lewis, we will help you do the paperwork so you can quickly start the CPT opportunity to do. So which means you're working during the day, earning money, building your profile and portfolio, and you're attending classes in the evening, and you're able to get your degree at an affordable price. If you look at the international student population, we are about 200 students in terms of international students, largely from India, typically from Andhra and Telangana region. So that's good news if you're attending from Andhra and Telangana region. Our student to faculty ratio is about 13:1. And in terms of GRE requirement, we don't require GRE or GMAT for any of our programs. If you're applying for bachelor's degree, we don't require SAT or ACT. The best part is we have a lot of on-campus part-time jobs and also graduate assistantship positions. So if you land a GA position, then you can get a straight away 50% tuition fee waiver. Sometimes it can go up to even 80%, 85%. If you're applying through College Day, then we waive your application fee, which is otherwise $40. And we don't ask for WETS evaluation once again if you're applying through College Day as well. The best part is we've tried to speed up our application processing time. So if you're submitting a complete application, then we try and turn around your application within 3 weeks. And if you're already in the US and if you want to transfer to Lewis University, then we will typically turn around your application within 3 days. So that's very attractive. The best part is if you are admitted and if you've submitted your financial documents, we will issue you an I-20 within 3 business days as long as you are getting in touch with us. I'm not going to talk too much about a lot of different things because I'll be happy to take questions from students. You can look up more information about the university on the website. One of the important things that I want to highlight is we have our own private airport within the Lewis University campus. If you're a student who aspires to study aviation or related programs, then it's a great way because you will be learning a lot of programs right by touching and feeling the aircraft, because the professors will take you to the aerodrome where you will see aircrafts and you will learn, so that way you get better experience. Here are some photos of the campus, which I'm going to quickly skip. So if you're looking at studying undergrad programs, then these are the programs. The ones marked with asterisks are the ones that are STEM programs. In terms of undergrad expectation, the cost of attendance is about $49,500, of which you can straight away get anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 scholarship. The admission requirements is fairly simple. All that we ask for is an English proficiency test, class 12 mark sheet, and a passport, along with your financial documents. Master's degree programs. Here are the list of programs. I'm not going to spend 1 or 2 extra minutes here because As you can see, almost every single program that we offer is STEM designated, which means students who study any of the programs that's listed on the screen, you are eligible to do OPT for up to 3 years. As you can see, we offer MS Business Analytics, Business Administration, which is MBA, and MS Finance within the management programs. And the best part is all those programs are also STEM eligible. And apart from that, we offer MS in Aviation, which has a 100% placement rate for our international students, which is actually exciting, because if you're going to be studying aviation and transportation, and if you do well, there's a good probability that you will be absorbed by one of the companies, because we're located in Chicago, and so far we've had a 100% placement rate, at least for this long, until before the pandemic. Computer science, and of course, we get a lot of applications for computer science, cybersecurity, data science. The best part is our admission requirements are super simple, because we strongly believe in giving students a second chance if they want to study at Lewis University. Our TOEFL requirements is 79. If you're taking IELTS, we ask for 6.0. Sometimes we understand students may also have 5.5. Sometimes we are willing to make that exception. And if you're taking PTE, we ask for 52. If you're taking Duolingo, we ask for 100. Apart from that, all the other application materials like SOP, consolidated mark sheet, tool recommendation letters, and your financial documents. As you can see, the tuition fee is about $25,500 total for 1 year, which includes the tuition fee of $15,000, living expenses of $9,000, and health insurance of $1,500. So if you're typically only looking at the tuition fee, it's about $15,000 average per year. So for 2 years, you're talking about $30,000. Most of you may already be familiar with CPT or OPT, but like I mentioned, you can do CPT from day one. If you're doing full time, you can do CPT for 1 full year. If you're doing part time of 20 hours, then you can do off-campus CPT for the duration of the program. If you're doing OPT, you can do OPT for 3 years after you graduate. A lot of times students ask, hey, how is the placement and things like that. So our Career Center actually does career fairs twice a year, once during fall and the other time during spring. So that way students can take advantage. And every semester, we have about 300 companies that come and recruit our students for internships and full-time jobs. This is my last slide where I'll talk about the placement rate. And this is just international students. So naturally, as you can see, we have a good placement rate. If you're in aviation transportation program, our placement rate is about 100%. If you're studying computer science, then 85% placement rate. The starting salary is anywhere from $53,000 and kind of goes up. And I've also listed the placement rate and the average starting salary for programs. So if you can see, the minimum starting salary is at about $44,000. So which means if you're going to be spending $30,000 to get your master's degree at Lewis, and if you get placed, you can easily start off at about $44,000 or $45,000. So right away in your first year, you are taking whatever money that you're investing in your higher education. And that's the best part, right? If you're studying at a university that's very close to a big city like Chicago, then your chances of getting hired in terms of internship for or even full-time job is pretty high. And that kind of brings me to the end of the presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions from the audience. I'm just going to leave this slide for you guys. If you have any questions about the programs or the admission requirements, I'll be happy to talk.
Thanks, Krishna. That is really helpful. And we got a lot of, there are certain questions in the question Q&A session. So are you able to see those questions, or do you want me to read so that you will be able to answer?
I think I can see the questions. All right, I see the first question. What is computer science ranking in Lewis? So what I would personally recommend you is to quickly open up US News World Report and look it up. So what we have indicated on the presentation of the slide is the university ranking. But if you're looking at a department-specific ranking, then I would say go into specific websites, because there's so many agencies like US News World Report, Peterson's. There's so many things that kind of individually rank. So if you're looking at as a university ranking, then we are ranked top 25 in the Midwest, and that's listed on US News. Okay, I see the second question. Are there any prerequisites? It depends. So if you are somebody who are coming from a background, for example, let's see, if you have a computer science or an information technology, and then if you want to come to Lewis University to study computer science, then you're coming from a relevant background. So which means you may not have prerequisites. But on the other hand, let's say if you're coming from civil engineering or let's say agriculture or history, and then if you decide to study computer science, absolutely you could expect some prerequisites, and the number of prerequisites can typically vary from student to student depending on what program that you've studied and where you studied as well. Right, I see.
And now,
I would like
sorry to interrupt, Krishna. Now, coming to this prerequisites, does the student is going to get it on its acceptance letter, or how exactly this happens after the I-20 or prior to the I-20 does the student gets?
Okay, that's a great question. So it becomes a little bit challenging for us because we get tons of applications, and if we have to eventually sit down and evaluate the number of prerequisites for all students, it becomes a little bit challenging. But let's say, hypothetically, I also understand as a student, you need to know how many prerequisites you're going to get before you can attend your visa interview, or sometimes even after the visa interview. So in that case, I would say reach out to your consultancy, and then they would be happy to reach out to me. So what we would do is typically take your application and do a quick check and let you know exactly how many prerequisites you may be expected to take. Sometimes I would always look at it with a pinch of salt. So for example, computer science has a maximum number of prerequisites. For a computer science program, the maximum prerequisites can be 6 courses, which translates to 18 credits. If you're coming from a non-related background, then if I were you, I will be pessimistic and I would ask you to be prepared to take all 6. But if you have studied any of the prerequisites in your bachelor's degree, or if you have studied, taken an online certificate program from an accredited institution or an institute, or let's say if you've done e-learning from platforms like Coursera, edX, or all these let's say credible sources, then we would ask you to kind of show us a certificate. And number 2, these should be paid courses and not really like free courses where you're just doing 1 hour certificate and then you're getting a free certificate. And we would ask you to show us the curriculum so that where we can see, okay, have you done the required foundation course through one of the other sources if you don't want to come to university and take. So to answer your question, if you want to know the exact courses, how many prerequisites you're going to take, we do not print it on the admission letter, but if you want to kind of get the exact number, then reach out to us after you get your admission or acceptance, so we can quickly double check and let you know how many courses you might be expected to take. I also see another question from you. The question is, if the visa officer asks about the language test, why did you choose Duolingo instead of IELTS or TOEFL? How do you answer that? That's a great question. Let's be realistic. Duolingo is again an English test, which is one of the reasons majority of the universities have started accepting it with the current pandemic situation. So just like TOEFL or IELTS, Duolingo is again an acceptable English proficiency test, and you're more than welcome to tell or inform the officer, hey, as part of the admission requirement, I was expected to take an English proficiency test, and I did take Duolingo. I was able to meet the admission requirement, and that's how they able to get admitted into US. Right, I see additional questions like, can you briefly explain about the on-campus employment opportunities? That's a great thing. So the way it works is when you actually register for, let's say you get your visa, we walk you through the pre-departure orientation process, and once you come to campus, you are expected to register for classes, and we will give you access to the online portal. The best part is the online portal has a couple of sections. One specific section is called the handshake, the typical handshake, where we list all the on-campus part-time jobs and anything like the graduate assistantship positions, the research assistantship, teaching assistantship positions, and all the other part-time jobs there. So you will typically be able to look it up and see what are the jobs that are available that you can apply to. And once you apply, what I generally recommend is visit the department, talk to the hiring manager, so you get better understanding of the job. You can also understand what's the pay range that they're going to be paying you if you land at the job. Sometimes some positions may expect you to kind of undergo as what's called as a typical interview. Not really like a technical interview, but they really want to at least test your communication skills and your flexibility to see if you're willing to kind of work the job that you're applying for. I see the next question is how much is the tuition fee for 2 years? Like I mentioned, it's about $15,000 per year. On an average for 2 years, you're typically looking at $30,000. If you have to take additional foundation courses or prerequisites, then your cost can go up a little bit. If I have to give you the dollar rate in terms of per credit hour cost, it's about $820. Most graduate degree programs at lowest can range from 30 credits to 33. On top of it, if there are any additional prerequisites, then that cost might be extra. I see another great question. Is Udemy certificate okay? Like I mentioned, we are willing to accept certificates from Udemy, anybody for that matter, right? But let's be very realistic. If you're going to take a free certificate or a free course on Udemy, which is for like 1 hour or 4 hours or just 1 day, and then you expect to show us that certificate and get a prerequisite or a foundation course waiver, in all honesty, it may not be an apple to apple comparison, because a foundation course will be for 3 credit hours, which you will study for an entire term or a semester. And how will that be considered equivalent to a Udemy course if it's a free course for 1 hour or a couple of hours, right? So it has to be like a paid certification that you've taken in one of the platforms, and we may ask you to show us the curriculum if that institution is something, or institute is something that we've never heard of, just to make sure that these are legitimate certificates. All right, I see additional questions like how much do we need to show in the bank? That's a great question. I usually tell people, if you, whatever that you see in the I-20, just be prepared to show that. If you have more than that, then great, but you don't really have to freak out thinking, okay, do I have to show 1.5x or 2x or 3x or how many times the amount? The reason, let's be very honest, right? The reason the US government expects you to show just whatever is at least the amount that's indicated on the I-20 is we understand, the universities understand, the consulates understand, the officers at the consulate understand. It's almost impossible for all the families to have so much liquid funds sitting in the bank account. That is one of the reasons, irrespective of whichever university you go to, they will only print the I-20 to indicate funds for just either 9 months or 1 year, because they understand it's impossible for all families to have so much funds sitting in the bank accounts. So as long as you can show that you have enough funds for at least the first year in the form of liquid funds, sometimes the officer could ask you, hey, how do you plan on funding your education for the second year? That doesn't mean that they expect you to show readily available liquid funds, but they at least want to hear if you have a plan, or if, at least if your family has a plan on how they are going to help you study for the second year in terms of the funding. So long story short, to answer your question, for Lewis University, we expect you to show at least $25,500 if you're going to be studying a master's degree. Then it's absolutely okay if you show funds equivalent to $25,500. Not a penny more, not a penny less. If you have more, then great. All right. Let's see additional questions like how much we need to show. Okay, I think I've already talked about it. Property evaluation report. Again, that's a great question. Based on my experience of working with the US consulate, now, a lot of times they're not really looking at the property evaluation documents. If you have an evaluation report, you can keep it handy. But once again, these are things where you would have to bring it in your conversation to be able to explain how it ties you back to your home country. So let's say one way to be able to say is, hey, I'm looking at coming back to India career perspective because I want to be closer with my family. I want to focus on my career path because I also have some family assets worth X crores or X lakhs. So when you talk about it in a holistic perspective, they understand, okay, the person is interested in coming back to India and at the same time is concerned about being closer to the family because the family also has sizable inheritance that you would probably get eventually in the future. All right, I can see the question like how many times can I defer the admission Generally, we will allow you to defer it twice, but with the pandemic situation, if you want to defer more than twice, then we are willing to be a little bit flexible, and we can understand there's so much uncertainty, and we will allow you to defer more than twice. Could you explain the day one CPT, the rules and restrictions? Lovely question. If you understand what CPT is, it typically stands for curricular practical training. So what that means is we give you an opportunity, not just us, almost all US universities give you an opportunity to do internship related to your field of study. So that way you can typically apply your theoretical knowledge in a practical setting. And that's why the US government, when they designed the higher education system, they decided to give CPT as a way for international students to be able to gain relevant practical experience. So at Lewis University, we go one step further. We allow you to start your CPT from day one. So what that means is if you're smart enough to be able to find an employment or an employer to do your CPT, or let's say if you land at an internship in the first day or even your first month or your second month, then great. Has to be related to your field of study. So let's say if you're going to be studying business analytics or MBA, then you would have to find a job or an internship that is related to your business study or your business analytics or related to your program. You cannot find a job at McDonald's where you're flipping burgers, and even though that might pay you, you cannot use that towards your CPT because it's in no way a related match. So once you find a job, we would ask for your offer letter, and you will sit down with our program advisor and our international student services, who will approve your CPT and who will process your paperwork so you can start your CPT as soon as you get it. In terms of the rules and restrictions, I know there's always questions about, hey, if I do work from day one, is that not looked at as a credible student? Remember, your intention of doing the job is to be able to build experience. So that way, tomorrow when you graduate, you not only have a master's degree or a degree related to your field of interest, but you also bring in that relevant work experience. So that way, compared to somebody else who does not have work experience, you would have brought that opportunity that you would have worked as part of your internship when you sit down for placements. So that's the way I would recommend you to look at CPT opportunity. All right.
I
I
have
see
a quick question here, which
Please go ahead, Santosh.
now going back to the CPT, as much as I'm aware, it's usually for 12 months, if I'm not wrong. So if as a student, if I take the CPT on day one, then how about my OPT? Like, do I need to take a break, or you suggest the students to take it in the second year, or what exactly your suggestion, so that it might be useful for the students?
Absolutely, that's a wonderful question as well. So the question is, so the best part about CPT is the CPT is designed in two ways. Either you can do full-time CPT or part-time CPT. Difference between full-time CPT and part-time CPT is the number of hours that you will be working at your organization. So if it's going to be 20 hours or less than 20 hours, then that would be considered as part-time CPT. And if you're going to be working more than 20 hours, then that would be considered as full-time CPT. Best part about CPT is you can decide if you want to do full-time CPT or part-time CPT depending on your employer's expectation. So to answer your question, if it is a CPT that requires you to work full-time, then as per the USCIS norms, you are expected to work only up to 11 months or 11 months and 29 days. So typically less than a year. If you start working full-time CPT for more than a year, what happens is it eats into your OPT period. So when you apply for your OPT, you may face complications. But on the other hand, if you're going to be working only less than 20 hours per week, the best part is you can do CPT for the entire duration of your program. So I'll quote my example. When I was actually doing my MBA, fortunately enough, I actually got a CPT opportunity. So I was based in Missouri, but my employer was based in Maryland. And I was typically doing CPT just 20 hours a week. And I also had a graduate assistantship position. So I was working on campus for 20 hours a week, and that job completely waived my tuition fee. And I had a CPT opportunity to do internship with an employer that was based out of Maryland. So I was able to do both these for the entire duration, and I was able to comfortably pay my costs. And that's the advantage that we want to be able to give our students at Lewis as well. So if you find an employer that's based in Chicago or outside Chicago, we will allow you to do it from Chicago, but we would still expect you to attend classes. Remember, CPT is an opportunity where we give you to opportunity to attend class, and at the same time, you're still expected to attend class and be there in person.
See, now my next question would be, Krishna, if a student has, let's say in our instance, we happen to got luckily jobs on the CPT and we are able to manage the curriculum, but in some cases what happens, how exactly the classrooms will be there? Will it going to be on the weekend? Because if a student is working at the CPT full time, so he should be knowing whether he can attend on the weekend or exactly how good are the professors. I wouldn't say good, how flexible are the professors with regards to these kind of situations,
That's a fabulous question, Santosh. We have at Lewis University, we have intentionally designed our entire graduate program classes to start only in the evenings. Most of the classes, 90% of the classes will start only after about 6. It actually starts at about 6 o'clock in the evening, if my memory is right. Because we know we have students that might be doing jobs on campus, be it part-time jobs or be it internships outside the campus, because we know their primary purpose of being there is to study. At the same time, we want to be flexible enough so these kids can attend the classes in the evening, so that way it doesn't impact their education. To answer your question, we would typically have students can work during the day and students can attend classes typically in the evenings.
Okay, so they do have that kind of flexibility where they can attend in the evenings,
Correct.
And I see a lot of students who are asking about visa approval rate. So can I take this answer if you don't mind, Krishna, so that
yes,
you can add me on top of it.
So you can talk about
one thing. Yes, see, one thing, students here, we have to be very clear on this. As an international student, even Mr. Krishna was an international student, even I myself was an international student. So visa approval does not depend on any kind of factors other than yourself itself. So you have to give the proper justification. Even I will show you some examples. People from Ivy also get rejected, from Harvard, MIT, and even from state universities. It doesn't matter. All it matters is how you tell yourself, how you portray yourself in front of the view officer in that particular 2-3 minutes. That's all it matters. So visa approval, whatever you're seeing, all this kind of fuss on the social network, it's nothing. You have to listen from the people who are qualified enough. A student who's sitting here, they can talk anything, whatever they want, but hands-on experience matters a lot. So visa approval totally depends upon the yourself itself. And the basic things what we look for is the accreditation, university is accredited, and the history of the university and the reputation, as well as you can go to the USCIS website and you can be able to validate all these things. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm not wrong, Krishna, and you can add on top of it if you want to,
Absolutely, Santosh. Like you rightly mentioned, it boils down to who you are. Let's remember the fact that there are 4,000 plus US universities, right? If visa approval was tied to the university, then it's only the Ivy League that would probably even exist, and all the other universities would probably not even recruit students. But the best part is you may be going to a university that's well known, or you may be going to a university that's never even heard of. But the visa officers will still give you a chance, because end of the day, it boils down to who you are. And there are typically 3 things that are going to be looked at. Number 1, are you a credible student, which means is your interest genuinely to go study in the US and not misuse the visa. Number 2, do you have enough funds to pay for your education? And number 3, do you show ties to returning to India? As long as you are able to meet all of this and you are getting into an institution that is accredited, means it solves all of that. So you can be going to a university that's ranked number 5, or you can be going to a university that's ranked number 2,500. if you found a university that it interests you, then talk about why you chose that university out of the 4,000 universities that exist in the US. And that's exactly what they're looking for. Right. I see additional questions like which place would be best place to live for students, Romeoville or Chicago? That's a lovely question. It depends on how much you're willing to spend, right? If you want to be living in the heart of Chicago, then remember it's going to be expensive too, right? And if you're going to be living in the suburbs of Chicago, like Romeoville, then absolutely, it's going to be a lot more affordable. And originally coming from Chennai, when I went to Missouri, I felt like, oh my God, everything is super affordable, right? So I lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, independent house. I mean, it's not an apartment, it's an independent house because I know I chose a university like that. And that's exactly how you kind of shortlist where you want to live, how you want to spend your money. If you are a student like me, I do not know about Santosh, but if you're a student like me 10 years ago, who wanted to get an affordable education, then you want to share your accommodation, live a lot more conservatively. But if you want to live in Chicago and come to university, then actually number one is you need to have transportation, for which you would have to either buy a car or rely on public transportation, right? So these are some of the things that will also incur additional cost on top of being in an expensive location like within the Chicago. But there is again upside to it. You're going to have a lot of exposure, like the cultural experience. You're going to meet tons of people from different nationality. You will have a lot of restaurants to try. You will have a lot of nightclubs to go to, right? So if you are somebody like a party person, then absolutely Chicago is a great place to live. But if you are someone who want to kind of, hey, you know what, I don't want to spend a lot of money. I just want to go to school, want to do some part-time jobs, save some money to pay for my tuition fee, then try to live closer to campus so that way it makes it a lot more affordable. If I have to give you a ballpark range, I would say about, let's say, if you're going to be living closer to the campus in Romeoville, then it would be about $500 a month, including living expenses, food, and maybe 500 to 600. But if you're going to be living in Chicago, then you can typically multiply the cost by about twice, so it can be about $800 to $900 easily, depending on how lavish you live. I see there's a question about vaccination. Great question. So once you get your visa approved, typically we will start working with you a lot more closely because we want to make sure that you're fully prepared to arrive on campus. With the current pandemic situation, I understand there are two types of vaccinations. Number one, you're either talking about the COVID vaccination or you're typically talking about other immunizations that you needed to have taken. The best part is you'd be better off coming to the US and taking the vaccination because in the US there are tons of vaccinations available, whereas in India, I know there's still a lot of wait time. I still have to take my COVID vaccination and I'm still looking for slots. I wish I was in the US right now. I could have just gotten my shot a long time ago. So we don't expect students to take the COVID vaccination, but if you have to, but talking about other immunizations right from your childbirth, then I will be working with you closely to be able to take care of all of that before you actually come to the university. If you get your visa approved, then be sure to reach out to your consultant to help you connect with me, and then we will talk about the next steps in terms of vaccination or immunization. I see a question, is it compulsory to maintain a GPA of 3.0 for every semester? The website shows if you don't maintain it, you'll be dismissed from the course. That's a lovely question. As long as you're in India, you can have a happy time, you can maintain your GPA up or down. But once you come to the US, you're in an international soil. Remember, your purpose is to study. And then you are bringing in all this money, time, and effort. So you have to maintain a GPA of 3.0. In the best interest of time, I'll keep my story short, but I'll tell you a very small story about my experience. The first semester, I landed in the US. I was super excited, just like every Indian student, right? Guess what happened? I lost focus and my GPA actually went down. It was actually 2.3 if I have to be really, really specific. And I don't think any Indian representative would ever talk about their GPA. It's okay, I'm happy to share my GPA. The first semester, I got a 2.3 because I flunked in a subject, my accounting class. So the International Student Services called me and gave me a warning and said, okay, you cannot afford to drop under 3.0. And that was my first official warning. If I continued with a lower GPA, then they would have simply deported me and asked me to return to India. And that was a turning point of my life, honestly speaking, because until then I thought, okay, everything is going to be super easy. Life in the US is just a piece of cakewalk. Maybe I was just overconfident. But after I actually flunked, I realized, okay, I had pulled my GPA up, and only then I can even apply for the graduate assistant positions. So the long story short is you would have to maintain 3.0. And once you have the 3.0, it makes it a lot more easier to apply for, let's say, graduate assistant positions or internships or full-time job opportunities, because everything is tied to that, at least to start with, especially if you don't have any experience from the past. The first thing that they're going to ask you is, okay, what's your GPA? At least that will give them some sense of your performance or credibility. Right, I see other questions. How many credit hours to complete a master's? Can I complete master's in 1.5 years? Absolutely, yes, you can complete your master's degree in 1.5 years. The best part at Lewis University that I definitely have to highlight is we have 5 intakes called as, I'm sorry, there would have been a latency. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. There was a little bit of latency, I guess. Yeah, now it's better, Krishna. I guess.
Can you hear me okay,
we can hear you
Santosh?
now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was just double checking. Okay, so I was explaining about at Lewis University, we have 5 different intakes, and our semesters are not typically from August till December. All our semesters are just 8 weeks long. So which means our summer session starts from May and it ends in, let's say, June, July. Our fall, which starts in August, we call it typically fall 1. It starts in August, it ends in October, and then our next session starts in October and it ends in December. The reason we've set it 8 weeks apart is because we don't want you to study the entire course for the entire duration. You just study a course during that 8 week, finish all your exams, forget, throw the subjects away. Then you focus on your next set of subjects. So which means when I said 5 intakes are there in Lewis, even if you were to take 1 course every term is what we refer to, you'd be able to study 5 courses, which is 15 credit hours. So in 2 years, you'd be able to comfortably finish 30 credits. But imagine if you were to take 2 courses, you can comfortably actually do 2 courses. Our professors usually recommend if you want to do 2, you would be considered to do 2, but we won't allow you to do more than 2 because that would become difficult for you to manage. But you can do 2 courses and do part-time jobs comfortably. So if you did 2 courses every term, you would be able to even complete your entire master's in 1 year. But if you just did 1 and 2 alternatively, you would be able to comfortably finish your entire program in 1.5 years at Lewis University. That's the best part. I see additional questions. Are there in-person classes also in the evening? Until summer semester, we've been doing completely online because of the pandemic situation. Starting fall, we will be going in person. So you can take evening classes. Yes, like I mentioned, you will have evening classes and it will be in person. So we would expect you to physically be in class. There will also be some online courses. You can take some online and some in person to be able to kind of meet that requirement that's set forth by the US government. Details about Oak Brook campus. That's a great question. I need to kind of thank you for reminding me of that. We have 2 campuses within, let's say, Illinois. One is the main campus, which is Romeoville, which is about 35 miles from the heart of Chicago. And we also have a second campus, which is Oak Brook, which is pretty close to Chicago. And our College of Business programs, especially the Business Analytics, MBA, and MS Finance, typically takes place at our Oak Brook campus because the way it was designed, especially if you're going to be studying business, you're going to be living closer to the Chicago area and you will have a lot more connections. So whereas if you're going to be studying, let's say, computer science or all other programs, then you would be studying at Romeoville campus. Please keep in mind, both campuses are just like 20, 25 miles apart. It's not really like you're going to be 2 hours away. So if you're going to be planning your accommodation with some of your friends who are going to be studying MBA, and if you're going to be studying computer science, then you can find a common spot, so that way you can find, you will have to commute to different campuses for your programs. All right, is there any chance of change of department from CS to data science to cloud computing? That's once again a good question. Within the College of Arts and Science, we have computer science, data science, and cybersecurity. And all of this falls under the same department. So what it means is, if you want to change from computer science to cybersecurity or data science, then it's absolutely possible to do it until the day before the orientation. So even if you decided to apply for an MBA program now, and then you realize you want to change your mind and you want to study computer science, you're absolutely okay to do that. You can change it until the day before your orientation. I generally tell people, try and plan early, so that way you don't give us a lot of administrative work in the last minute. That doesn't mean that we will not help you to change, but you're absolutely welcome to change at any point of time. We don't offer MS in cloud computing, but we offer MS in computer science with a specialization in enterprise cloud systems. I hope that answered almost all of your questions.
Yes, Krishna, that was really helpful, and I guess we covered most of the topics, if I'm not wrong.
Wonderful. There was a lot of questions. For a moment, I was running out of breath.
Actually, there were so many people waiting. We got 41 registrations, and what happens with this particular is we only allow the students who are serious enough. So we have did that sanity check prior to allowing the students, and who responded and who acknowledged. So only for those students only we allowed into the webinar. And based upon the students' request, what they asked is probably down the road we can have one more session with the students who are attending the interview, as well as if we have alumni or any kind of a professor, especially from the data sciences or business analytics, would be really helpful.
Absolutely. So I know that's something that I already have in my checklist, and I can easily bring a current student, because I've already been maintaining a relationship with some of these students who went in January, March, and now in summer. And the only thing that I need to kind of figure out is some time with the professor, depending on the department of your preference. And then once I have it figured out, maybe we can plan for a follow-up session. So it will be more like a group panel discussion, and everybody can ask anybody a question what they want to figure out. Okay.
Other thing also, students, for this particular session, if anybody needed, please feel to email us. We will share you the recording also, so most of the questions will be answered. And you can always reach us via website or email, and even Krishna will be a call away. He responds us very fast. And thank you so much, Krishna, for taking your time, and stay safe. And before we close off, do you want to say anything to the students now?
First of all, thank you very much for organizing this session. I really appreciate it. It's great to always talk to you and students. I know we are constantly chatting on WhatsApp. So for students who are interested in studying at Lewis University, please feel free to apply through College Day. I know Santosh does a fabulous job. He's constantly following up on students. Whenever I respond, I sometimes wonder. I sometimes work late in the nights. I work early in the morning, and he's constantly replying to all my chats or questions. And then I wonder if this guy even goes to bed at all. Right. So, which means that shows the dedication, the amount of interest that he takes for his students, especially who apply through him, because you're putting your life, you're probably helping him or asking for help, and he does a fabulous job. And I know personally, because you kind of constantly follow up with me for all the student applications, I-20s, next steps in terms of how to go about. So that kind of shows how much you can care about them. So if you're applying to College Day, we give you an application fee waiver. We don't ask for best evaluation report. We will fast track your application process and your I-20 process. So if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to them, and they'll be happy to connect for any questions.
Thank you so much, Krishna, and we'll keep in touch. Stay safe and stay home.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Sandra. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, students, everyone. Thanks, and good luck for your visas and admissions.
Thank you, guys. Bye.